From Riverside Health System, this is the Healthy You podcast, where we talk about a range of health-related topics focused on improving your physical and mental health. We chat with our providers, team members, patients, and caregivers to learn more about how to maintain a healthy lifestyle and improve overall physical and mental health. So let's dive in to learn more about becoming a healthier you. Welcome to the Healthy You, the podcast where we explore everyday health topics and talk about the people who help keep our communications well. I'm your host, Frankye Myers, and today we're tackling a topic that's on many people's mind: how to feel better, how to move more and have more energy, and maintain a healthy weight without falling for the latest diet, which is always something that I'm signed up to do. Joining me is Jessica White, a family nurse practitioner with Riverside Whitestone Family Practice. That's a mouthful. Who brings a practical and empowering perspective to this conversation.
Hey, Frankye, thanks for having me. I'm actually pretty new to the family nurse practitioner role. Okay. I just graduated last year. And before that, I was in my RN role for about 10 years or so. But while doing that in the operating room mostly, I was also a personal trainer on the side and taught group fitness classes, lots of cycling classes. And I'd say that's really where my passion for lifestyle fitness and motivating people to live their healthiest lives really started from.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that's so important. And thank you for your commitment to doing that work. Let's kick things off with a snapshot of the current trends in health and weight. Do you know that over 45 million Americans go on a diet each year? And I put myself in that number. Yet more than 70% of adults are still classified as overweight or obese. I second that myself. These numbers tell us something isn't working, right? Jessica, how do you see these trends show up in your daily practice? And I know that as it relates to weight, it's not one size fit all. There's different body structures and muscle tones and all of those things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I see patients day to day who come in and they're frustrated with all of this yo-yo type dieting and trying to get the right recommendations on what works best for their individual body type. They're trying to do the right thing, and they keep falling into these plans that are way too restrictive, so they're way too hard on themselves. It's not sustainable long term, and often it's downright unhealthy. And it's not just about that number on the scale, even though we often think that's the most important thing, but it's about your energy levels, your mood, your digestion, stress levels. And people are just tired of chasing all of these trends and not getting the true advice that they need.
That's a great point. Let's talk about what healthy really means. What do you wish more people understood about weight and health? And I know even for me, this episode, is perfect because it's something that I deal with, even though I'm a healthcare professional. But I know that if I were the weight that that's publicized, I would not look good nor feel good. So it's definitely individualized. So touch on that a little bit as it relates to what you want people to understand about weight and health.
Yeah. I think it's really important to understand that it really is so much more than just that one element, that one weight, that one BMI. It's about your whole body and holistic health. And there's a lot of things that we can incorporate that, both physical and mental health. And there's a lot of other things I measure in primary care specifically, like blood pressure, your blood sugar control, your cholesterol levels, your waist circumference. All of those things really have massive implications on how good we feel and massive implications on our cardiovascular health. And so if we can increase good nutrition and fitness, it'll positively impact all of those factors, not just one. And by optimizing one of those things, it'll create this positive sort of cascading effect into all of those other elements.
Absolutely. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about weight loss?
I think the biggest thing is that the most important indicator is your weight or your BMI, that it's the most important number, and it's just not. And that people feel like to get there, they have to be in this super restrictive diet. They have to cut out all their carbs or be in this massive caloric deficit. And I promise you, carbs aren't evil. I think that's a big thing people feel. We need carbs for energy and for proper fuel. And all of these advertised quick fixes they're just not sustainable, and they end up having negative effects, right? So we end up having decreased metabolism, worsening fatigue. The goal is to create healthy habits that last a lifetime. Absolutely. That aren't just for a month or two.
I know for me, have a strong family history of diabetes, high blood pressure, and some obesity. Even though I'm a healthcare professional, in the last 5 years, I just started really paying attention to even reading labels and understanding a serving sizes, right? Like one thing may have 6 serving sizes, so you don't want to eat the whole bag. How many carbs are in a serving?
It can be surprising.
And I was able to get my A1C within normal range just by, to your point, I don't exclude anything, but being aware of how many carbs are in something.
And I think that's a big point, is that people often aren't aware of maybe how many carbs or how many grams of fat or how many true calories they eat in a day. People come like, I eat healthy. And I'm like, well, let's take a moment. Let's watch those labels and keep track of everything just for a week or two. You don't need to keep track for your lifetime.
Right.
But they come back surprised, like, wow, I thought I was eating healthy, but I'm eating way more carbs than I need, or I'm eating way more calories, or sometimes even way less than I need. And so I think tracking some of those things gives you a good idea about what's truly happening, and we can make adjustments from there.
That's a good point. And even for me, during the day, I didn't eat a whole lot. But when I went home, I made up the deficit. And it's late at night. So I had to realize that I need to get those larger meals in earlier. So that's good information. Let's go into food a little bit more. We've already hit that a little bit because nutrition plays such a huge role in weight, energy, and weight loss. What are your go-to principles as it relates to counseling patients?
I always like to start with foods to prioritize, not foods to cut out. And so stuff like prioritizing high fiber, good lean proteins, nutrient-dense whole foods with healthy fats and proper hydration can really help people feel their best and give them the energy they need without a lot of those cravings. And it just makes you feel fuller and satisfied longer. So you don't overindulge at night when you haven't had the proper fuel throughout the day. And I also think it's important. Meal times are a really important time for all of us, with our friends, with our family. And just because we're trying to prioritize our health doesn't mean we need to make sacrifices. You know, it's all about balance over restriction and about portion control. Like, should we eat 4 slices of pizza and a big serving of ice cream every night? Well, probably not. But we should be able to enjoy those in moderation. I like the rule of like the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time we prioritize whole foods that are nutrient dense and that are good for us. But also the other 20% of the time, it's okay to indulge and enjoy some of those things that we like to have.
Some people have the routine, that on Saturday I'll splurge. You know, I'll be good 6 days a week. You know, that kind of thing.
And sometimes that works too, because it's not like 100% I just can't have dessert.
Right.
Because it just makes you feel, you know, just not encouraged, and you feel like you're missing out on things. You do, And then when you decide to splurge, you just go way overboard, and that doesn't work. I think we've all been there. So you've got to be able to balance a little bit of both and moderate everything. Over restriction won't lead anybody to success. It usually leads to failure.
Good point. Good points. So how can someone know if their fatigue is due to poor nutrition or something else or something more serious?
The usual signs of fatigue related to poor nutrition is feeling excessively tired during the day, even if you feel like you're getting good night's rest the night before. Midday crashes are a huge one, kind of getting the after lunch slump or just not being able to make it through the tail end of your workday without feeling tired. And that's all from low energy due to improper fuel. Often people have an inability to concentrate. And most often I see a lot of increase in irritability. It's kind of where that hunger creates anger. I call it hangry. Like, people get hangry. And that's a big sign that you just don't have the proper nutrition. You know, and there's other things that can cause it too, like inadequate hydration, unmanaged stress levels, sleep apnea. And there are some things in primary care that I check for as well. Like, if your thyroid's not functioning well, you can feel pretty fatigued. And if you have some nutrient deficiencies, like if your B12 is out of line, or, you know, you don't have enough iron or vitamin D, all those things can play a role too.
What about, and I'm just asking for myself, eating during a certain window of time has become very, very popular. What's your thoughts on that?
Like the intermittent fasting?
Yes.
I actually do really like intermittent fasting. And it's not necessarily for everybody. If you have like diabetes or things like that where you might have blood sugar crashes, you need to monitor that well. And I think the biggest thing with intermittent fasting that we kind of touched on is as long as that doesn't lead to you overeating during your eating window, it can be fine. So maybe monitoring your calories or counting some stuff up in your eating window to make sure you're not overdoing it. But there are some benefits to intermittent fasting as well. Some people actually have better blood sugar control and things like that with it. So I'm actually a fan of it as long as you just don't overdo it.
Yes. All right. Good stuff there. We've talked a lot about how fueling your body makes a difference. Now let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about how movement plays a role in all of those things, and lasting energy.
Yeah, I think exercise can be one of the most empowering tools we have for our health. I really do. But I think one of the biggest things is to not view exercise as like a punishment, viewing it more as like a privilege. So if you view exercise as something you get to do, not something you have to do, that can drastically change your outlook, you know?
Yes.
Not being like, well, I overate all weekend, or I ate something I shouldn't have last night, too much ice cream, so tomorrow I need to go to the gym and run 10 miles to burn off the good. That's not a good way to view exercise. Exercise can really make you just feel great, can give you lots of confidence, and it doesn't have to be this massively complicated workout plan ever. I think that can be overwhelming for people. It can be just simple, like taking the stairs instead of the elevator, walking after dinner, or having a good like step goal. That you try to get those easy things, and also incorporating strength training, not just thinking you have to run to burn the most calories. Strength training is one of the best.
Hand weights at home.
Body weight exercises, things like that. It's great for our bone health, and muscle helps burn fat. So I think having a good mix of cardio and strength training will help you feel your best. And after you do those workouts too, you burn calories during the workouts, but you also continue to burn calories long after your workout's done. So it's kind of a win-win.
I'm glad you talked about that. For me, and being a former athlete, and now that I'm older, the gym was not the environment for me because I ended up going in and hurting myself because I'm trying to still go in with the same vigor that I did when I was younger. And I'm glad you mentioned the simple things like taking stairs, just doing a walk after dinner, like understanding where you are physically. And move up and what there makes sense for you, and not feeling like you have to go do all these elaborate things in the gym.
Yeah, because then you could feel
goal, right,
and then you can feel down on yourself too. Like, well, let me just start by running a mile a day. Running a mile is not easy.
Not on bad knees.
No, not for everybody. And so if you go and do it, and you don't get to do it, well, you're going to give up. Well, I can't do this. So just start small and work your way up. And just be proud of yourself for even trying. Stepping into the gym is probably one of the hardest things.
Yes.
You know, starting that workout. And so you already did it. You did the hard part. So just enjoy it from there.
Absolutely. And I think this touches on, this question that I had for you is, about somebody feeling overwhelmed. And what's the first step to starting a manageable routine?
It's just setting those realistic goals. Starting small, don't overwhelm yourself because you're not going to stay committed to it. No intensive training schedules needed. And look for progress more in just what you see on the scale, because the scale is often going to be one of the last things that you're noticing seeing progress on.
I'm glad you said that and why is that? Because I think that can be discouraging sometimes.
Definitely. You don't think you're seeing a difference. Yes. You'll often see, if you're working out more frequently, a change in maybe the way your clothes fit or how much more energy you have or how much more confidence you have. You'll see those changes before you'll see changes on the scale. And a lot of times it's because you're increasing your muscle mass at first, right? So maybe you're losing some fat, but you're gaining some muscle at the same time. And it can take a while to see the big changes on the scale. And again, that's not the reason why we're doing this. The reason why we're doing this is to be healthy and to feel good in our skin. And you'll also notice as you start working out more that you are feeling better, and then you're going to want to keep doing it. And for mental health too. Like, I know for me, if I start working out, I feel so much better mentally.
Your stress level. Yes. Anxiety. Absolutely.
And I think sometimes even at home, like my husband will notice it. If I haven't worked out for a while, he's like, oh, maybe you need to go work out. Not because I need the workout, but because I'm just much less stressed and just feel better after a good workout. And you'll notice that once you start doing it more, and you'll just want to keep doing it.
Yeah, that's good. That's great information. How have fad diets and social media influenced the way people think about weight loss and healthy living? I think some of those things can be unrealistic and set unrealistic expectations, and you've already touched on that a little bit, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I agree. I think unfortunately social media and this like rigid diet culture that's kind of been thrown at us really has negative impacts on how we view our health. Anything that's like a lose weight quick deal is a scam, honestly, and it's not going to be
that easy.
No,
right?
It's not, and it's not going to be sustainable. And I do feel like, unfortunately, there is too much pressure put on us to look a certain way, and that's super important in our health when it's really not. And to be real, a lot of times who we're comparing ourselves to are these influencers who are posed or edited, and it's just not realistic, and everybody's body is made to look different. So aiming to look a certain way just isn't the best way to approach our health.
Yes. Every time I see these podcast photos, I don't want to eat for a couple weeks. So, but understanding that the camera is not always a realistic view of what your weight is.
Yeah.
What are the red flags people should watch out when evaluating a new diet or product?
There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of stuff without scientific backing. And so some of the red flags would be advice from unqualified people that we're seeing on social media.
That goes in with everything,
with
right?
everything, with new products, with diets, with anything.
Right,
so look for
right.
credibility of who's posting it and what they're posting. And like I said, don't trust any quick fix claim. It's just not going to work. And for weight loss, if that's your goal, really a good goal is for like 1 to 2 pounds a week. These diets are like lose 20 pounds in a month. That's not healthy. It's not sustainable. So don't fall for anything like that. And we want to avoid these over restrictive diets. If that's its claim, you want to avoid that. We just want those healthy habits that turn into long-term lifestyle changes that'll keep us feeling our best.
That's great information. Let's end on a hopeful note, though. What strategies do you recommend to building those good habits that you're able to stick with?
I recommend just starting small. Don't overwhelm yourself. Accomplish one small goal, celebrate that goal, accomplish another, and then accomplish another. Don't start by, I'm going to go home and I'm going to throw out all the processed foods in my house and all my carbs, and I'm going to start running 10 miles a day. Yeah, right. That is too much, and we're just not going to stick with it. Right. So that one small change we make will lead to another. It's progress. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And also realize that it's not going to be perfect and be okay with that. Expect some setbacks. That's fine. Give grace and just celebrate all the small things along the way.
I love that. So, Jessica, what's your message to our listeners who feel like they've failed in the past? And I can put myself in that category. I failed every New Year's resolution over the last 10 years.
Been there, yep. I think my biggest advice would just be to try to find joy in the journey. Like, enjoy the process. Be proud of all the small changes that you're making and the big changes that happen too. Expect those speed bumps, but every step really does count in the right direction, no matter how small it is. And another good piece of advice is your future self will be thankful if you just start making these changes today. Don't wait until next year or next month or next week. I don't know how many times I've said diet starts Monday or diet starts next month. I'm really going to get myself together. If you just start it today, really your future self will thank you. And it's never too late for anybody to just start taking their health into their own hands.
You have just motivated me, and I just appreciate your passion and the grace and the understanding in which you've just conveyed all of those things, because so many of us struggle in that space. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come sit down. You're always welcome to come back, and I do think we need an end of the year check-in, right, to see if we've kind of taken some of these tips and incorporated them, and I know I'll make you proud. I've incorporated some of those changes. So
I love to hear it
for myself. So thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yes, anytime. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today for The Healthy You. If this episode has inspired or helped you, please share and check us out next month. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Healthy You. We're so glad you were able to join us today and learn more about this topic. If you would like to explore more, go to riversideonline.com.